some technical difficulties this morning with our audio for the live stream. To view the live stream video of this meeting, please go to Lewis Palmer School District 38 YouTube page at the Lewis Palmer website on the Board of Education meetings webpage. Unfortunately, it is live streaming without audio, excuse me, that makes no sense, live streaming without video. Live streaming without audio. So we are recording it, and that recording will be posted along with the video. Ms. Wood, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Clausen.
Here.
Ms. Phillips.
Here.
Mr. Schwartz.
Here.
Mr. Taylor.
Here.
Ms. Upchurch.
Here.
Excellent. Mr. Clausen, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I'd be honored to, Mr. Taylor. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I would like to make a motion that we accept the agenda as presented.
I will second that motion, Mr. Taylor.
Any discussion, comments, or questions? Would you call the roll, please, Ms. Wood?
Mr. Clausen.
Aye.
Ms. Phillips.
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch.
Aye.
Our first item of business today is to consider approve the contract for Assistant Superintendent. I'd like to make a motion to approve the contract of Amber Weinstein, Assistant Superintendent, to begin July 1, 2021.
I'll second.
Comments? Well, before we go to the roll call, Dr. Summers, would you like to make an introduction?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So, good morning. So, it's my privilege and pleasure to introduce Mrs. Amber Weinstein. She is coming to us from District 49, where she is currently the Executive Director of Learning Services. She has a 20-plus year career in education, including tenure as a coordinator for school improvement, elementary school principal, elementary school assistant principal, instructional coach, and elementary teacher, in addition to several other roles that she's been able to play in support of different initiatives, both district and state driven. We were really impressed. We had a very robust and rigorous application and interview process, and I think what impressed us most about Amber is, number one, she is dedicated to each and every student. She understands what it means to be a collaborative leader, support for our staff, support for our community, and I think we're very fortunate to have somebody of her caliber at this point in time joining our team. She's also very motivated to step in and align her work to our strategic plan initiatives and objectives, and I think we're going to be very fortunate, like I said, to have the caliber of her leadership joining our team. And really looking forward to many great years in service to the student, staff, and community of District 38. So without further ado, Amber is here with us, at least briefly, so she has the opportunity to at least say hi and let you know a little bit about her. So.
Okay, just
Sure.
stand up
Yeah, go for it.
and greet everybody. I'm just absolutely thrilled to be joining the Lewis Palmer School District team. I'm so appreciative of this opportunity, and I just cannot wait to get to know all of the details and meet everyone, parents and students and staff. I will say I received many emails over the weekend, and I was able to come in last week and meet folks in HR and in the technology team, and everybody has just been so welcoming and so warm that I just can't wait to get to know everybody better. So thank you again. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any comments or questions?
Welcome to the team. We've reviewed your resume. We've heard so many good things about you, and we're just excited to have you on board.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We're looking forward to you getting started.
Thank you. Welcome to the team.
Side note, that may be the one time you get off the hook without any questions.
Yeah.
Might want to enjoy
Enjoy that while it lasts.
Yeah, could you tell us about D40? Never mind, I forgot. So, Ms. Wood, would you call the roll on the vote to approve this contract?
Yes. Mr. Clausen.
Aye.
Ms. Phillips.
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Our next presentation is with Schneider Electric presentation, and this is almost like the capstone of all the work that's been going on, so we'll turn it over to you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Good morning. President Taylor, Board of Education, Dr. Somers, thank you so much for having us this morning. Once again, my name is William Benish. I'm a program manager with Schneider Electric, alongside Robert Davidson, our project development manager. Throughout the last 5 months, we've been conducting an investment grade audit with Lewis Palmer School District in determining a final scope of work for a comprehensive capital recovery program for the district. The purpose of today's presentation is to share the final results from the investment grade audit that we presented on May 12th to the district leadership team, as well as share the project timeline moving forward and making sure that this Board of Education feels comfortable and confident moving forward with this project. To kick things off, we wanted to, first off, share some of our wonderful photos from the Arbor Day celebration at Palmer Lake Elementary School held on April 30th. Our team came out, myself, Robert, a few other members from our team, and we led some Earth Day themed activities for the 4th through 6th graders, teaching the importance behind Earth Day, and held some activities. As throughout those photos, you can see that first one on the left with our 4th graders with our energy pledge tree activity that we held with them. We also held a carbon footprint activity with the 5th graders, discussing the importance of reducing your own carbon footprint at school and at home. And finally, with our 6th graders getting competitive with some speedy solar car racing, where the students built their own solar cars. You can see in the top right corner there's a bracket behind those students, and it got pretty competitive, pretty heated, I must say, but very exciting. And we hope to continue that tradition for years to come. So with that being said, jumping into our agenda for today, you'll see it looks similar to our presentation that we held in April regarding the 60% investment grade audit update. Today we will be presenting those final numbers to the district, as well as addressing the connection to the district's strategic vision. So to kick things off, I wanted to start from the beginning. In January, we kicked off this investment grade audit with an objective in mind: to identify a solution for this district that is able to address the strategic vision while taking care of the long-term outstanding capital needs for the school district. There are other ongoing projects occurring alongside ours, and we wanted to understand exactly what that looked like in the long-term capital plan for Lewis Palmer. So with that, our team, we created 3 goals alongside the assistance of the district leadership team. Connecting this project to goals 1, 4, and 5 of the district's strategic vision, generate a project that prioritizes security upgrades for 3 specific sites in need, and resolving outdated controls issues across the district, really focusing on improving operations, comfort, indoor air quality, ventilation, and filtration for the students at every school. In order to develop this objective for the school district, our team had to understand, okay, what are the challenges that the district is facing? First being belated security measures. As Mr. Coates has mentioned several times in the past, the security measures at those 3 sites in particular are 14 years in the making. Overdue, but really leading to some of those concerns that we've heard from staff, faculty, and community leaders. the complaints from staff and faculty regarding the deferred maintenance. This was especially important during the stakeholder interviews that our team held in February of 2020. We heard from everyone in this organization of this school district in discussing the different needs when it comes to discomfort and disruption in the learning environment. Limited funding, really impeding the district's ability to take care of their long-term needs in a timely manner, knowing there's a lot to be done. And finally, a desire for additional transparency with the constituents of District 38, understanding that this community is diverse. There are direct and indirect ties to this district, and understanding how do we create a message that impacts every member of this community. So those are really the big four challenges, as we like to call it. As a recap, we wanted to reintroduce, if you remember from our very first presentation to this board back in December, December, we shared this bar graph illustration here, really highlighting how this program works, energy performance contracting. So in the before column, the district has their utility expenditures from our baseline consumption around $1.5 million a year. After a project is complete, we are reducing the utility expenses and operational expenses from the district, guaranteeing a certain portion of that into energy and operational savings, and using that to fund the project over time. I included in the blue text column there, on the right side there, that chart, the statutes in Colorado that support this initiative. And I also wanted to briefly provide a nod to the Colorado Energy Office. They provided third-party assistance to Lewis Palmer School District during the review of this investment grade audit, and they were extremely helpful in working with our team as well, but they also validated our work. They ensured that the savings and the numbers that we were providing were approved by the district, but also approved in their eyes and their perspective. So they've been a huge help in this process. And I should have mentioned this at the beginning. If there are any questions that come up, please feel free to interrupt us. Absolutely. And you'll see as a recap as well, the project connection to the district's strategic vision. We shared this slide at our last presentation, but really connecting to 1, 4, and 5. And what we'll do today is go through each and discuss where the project holds its strongest value with each of those goals set in mind. So starting off with cultivating safe, healthy, and welcoming school environments. Resolving the district's most immediate needs, addressing concerns that have been brought up in the past. What's so important about this, the project and the scope of work that we'll share here in a few slides, it's extremely comprehensive. There's a lot that's happening. And without a program like this where we are leveraging energy and operational savings, this would most likely take the district years to complete all of these necessary upgrades. By working alongside the district's operations team, we learned this process. With this program, they will be able to take care of these most immediate needs in a very timely manner. Instead of taking years down the line, it'll be taken care of all together at once. And I'll share that timeline at the very end. These energy conservation measures, yes, they benefit the learning environment, which is of course the most important component, but also improving indoor air quality with some specific scope items that we'll discuss. And they are going to last beyond the 20-year project life. We'll show here in a few slides the service life for each of the scope items that are included in the project. They all exceed that 20-year project life, so the district will be able to capture those savings and the use of that equipment after the 20 years complete. And finally, leveraging student engagement activities. As you saw with our Arbor Day celebration, and we'll share at the very end our marketing communications plan for the summer, some more student engagement activities to come, but really trying to implement STEAM-oriented learning experiences for the students at this district. Ensuring effective asset management and efficient use of resources. The district receiving $9.2 million worth of capital upgrades for a district contribution of $1.8 million. This is truly leveraging the energy and operational savings. We'll share those numbers more specifically, but really highlighting the financial stewardship that the district is taking on. If you recall from the 60% deliverable that we shared back in April, we shared different cash flow options, and there was a difference between the guaranteed savings that our team will be conducting, as well as the projected savings. So the savings that the district will more than likely see in this process. So we've equated that, and Robert's done a great job at highlighting this, to close to $400,000 in the first year and projected life cycle savings over that 20-year period to be greater than $10.7 million in savings. And you'll see with once we share the final pricing guaranteed savings, how that compares and contrasts. Finally, with this slide, I feel it's extremely important, utilizing creative funding sources. So that the district is not only utilizing and separating from the capital reserves, but also leveraging their SR2 dollars, as well as leveraging the recent BEST grant win for the Lewis Palmer Middle School boiler installation to ensure that we're not depleting excess district dollars. We are being wise and effective with how those dollars are being utilized. And lastly, forging strong community relationships. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, our team did hold some district stakeholder interviews back in February. And this was so important because we were able to hear each voice that really did serve this district day in and day out. These are the ones that are on the front lines. If there's any discomfort or disruption to the learning environment, they're the ones that tell us. And that made an impact in prioritizing this final scope of work. In fact, as you'll see there, additional security and lighting scope was actually included at one of the sites due to the input that they made. Their perspective and point of view was extremely important because they would tell us, here's what parents are telling us. So we should probably keep that in mind. And these are things that some of the items we haven't heard from district leadership that really did make an impact on the final solution that we're presenting today. So in that regard, we felt this was important to include. As I did mention, an effective marketing communications plan, extremely important for school districts, but highlighting the positive story. I remember listening in at the May 17th board meeting, hearing from each board member talking about the excellent things that have happened this past year, and understanding that there's been significant progress through this unprecedented time. We want to be able to leverage that through a campaign over the summer and discuss how positive this year has been for Lewis Palmer School District. And really this last point, I felt like to include this, really putting an exclamation point, displaying financial and environmental stewardship to their students, staff, faculty, and constituents through this project initiative. The exclamation point at the end highlighting that. I'll stop here for a moment, went through goals 1, 4, and 5. Any questions or thoughts from the Board of Education?
I think we're good.
Okay. Robert, anything to add? So this is our final scope of work. Very similar to what we shared at our 60% meeting with a few changes. Robert, did you want to add in on a few of those changes?
Sure, yeah. So we, thanks, Will. Some of the biggest changes are that we talked about the possibility of adding cooling to Lewis Palmer Middle School. Upon final engineering and pricing, we concluded that that was not going to fit very well within the prioritization or organization of the project, so it has been excluded. We've included a few other savings items. The VFDs on the air handling units have been expanded to another site where there's really strong payback. We've also added in a variable secondary heating loop, which wasn't included in the project before because in preliminary engineering, the numbers didn't look great, but as we finalized it, they look fantastic. So we've got it in there as a way to help reduce the financial burden on the district and provide some productive energy savings.
As I mentioned earlier, a lot is happening here. A comprehensive scope of work that's nearly touching every site. So many items on there. And again, the fact that it is getting complete in such a timely and short period of time, not having to wait 1, 3, 5, 7 years down the line, we feel really does attest to the work that has been done this year, attaching itself to the strategic vision. Yes?
I assume the green boxes are things that the scope that will be done.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Have we already engaged in some upgrades to our LED lighting in some of our buildings?
Sorry.
Like Prairie Winds, for example.
So there are some interior lights that are LEDs. Most of the standard classroom, like traditional fluorescent lights, are still fluorescents.
Okay.
Exterior lights as well, there's been a few LED upgrades. What we're going to do is put in lights that are effectively compatible with what's been installed thus far. We're not going to rip out the LEDs that have been upgraded already. Those will stay in place.
Okay.
Great question. Thank you.
with regard to the security vestibules, are there upgraded diagrams for those, or I see two that have interior security walls? Was that included in the last diagram I saw? I'm trying to remember.
Yes, so in the final investment grade audit report, we have those more finalized renderings for what those look like. Happy to, well, I don't have them in this presentation today, but I'm happy to share those offline with you.
Sure, at some point in the future.
Absolutely. Anything you want to add?
I was going to say that the security walls were part of our proposal before, we just didn't have them in the midterm presentation as an image or a graphical rendering.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful.
Is that detail on our website?
Not currently on the website. It's part of the full-blown completed contract or proposal that we have. So, would you like to see that now?
I was just wanting some transparency around it as all. You know, I appreciate that it's in a big book, but you know, with Grace Best, everything we did, we put up on the website so the community could see it, and I would just feel more comfortable if we could somehow, some way, have that out there publicly.
We can certainly upload it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on the final scope of work? Well, associated with the final scope of work is the final price and guaranteed savings for the project as well. Again, a very similar table to what we shared at the 60%. These are the final numbers. So in that first column there, after the listed scope of work, is the price of each individual scope measure. To the right of that, the annual savings when it comes to energy and operational savings. To the right of that column, the life cycle savings. So over the 20 years of the project, the life cycle savings to it. So that's equating to just under $9.9 million of savings for the district over the 20 years. And to the final column there is the service life. Understanding that each scope item, each item is lasting beyond those 20 years. I believe the next shortest being the interior lighting at 22.7 years. So you'll see it is exceeding, so the district's able to capture not only the use of the equipment, but also additional savings. And we'll share some of that information on the next slide here. I'll stop for a moment to give the board a chance to look.
So while we're looking at it, I have a question on the previous slide.
Sure.
That I just thought about. So if we look at that scope for a minute, some of the work is immediate. What's the range in terms of what's the farthest thing out to completion?
Yeah, so we'll be able to jumpstart on the security vestibules this summer. That is a huge priority for us. We've built our entire construction schedule around getting that work done first. So that'll be done before the school year begins. And then a lot of the other work will happen over the coming school year, the 2021-2022 school year. There are some elements of the project that can't be done during the heating season, and there won't be enough time to get them done this summer, so they'll be done summer 2022 in order to ensure that they don't disrupt the required heating services to the school. So we have to wait till late spring 2022 to do some of that work. But construction will finish up summer 2022.
Are there likely some elements that can be done simultaneously? As an example, a subcontractor that builds a vestibule is not the same subcontractor that switches out lighting.
Correct, yeah. So the stuff is being done overlapping. So as an example, the lighting and the high efficiency water fixtures, the plug load controls, HVAC controls will all be done overlapping.
Right, simultaneously. Okay, thank you.
Let me piggyback on Ron's question. Will we realize the full savings in year one?
Yes. Should you not realize the full savings in year one, Schneider Electric will write you a check. We will pay you the difference for the missing savings.
Thank you.
Great questions.
So on the final price guaranteed savings, if we look in the far right column, thank you for providing that. Because at some juncture, you do have to replace things that wear out. It's important for us to understand and plan for that, and not for us to leave a large expense for our successors down the road. And in looking at this, it looks like the average lifespan per provided the estimates are close, is in the 4-year range beyond the contract. So it begets the question to Mr. Taylor's point, the $356,000 of average annual savings, is that relatively straight lined? Is it lumpy? Is it back-end savings, for example?
So I will say off the bat, and I'll let Robert touch in, the annual savings, that $356,000, that is the first year annual savings. And those savings will be escalating throughout the life of the project and so on. Do you want to add anything?
And I was going to add, within each calendar year, within each project year, they are a little bit lumpy. As you can imagine, things like lighting, making that more efficient will drive more savings during the school year when the lights operate more hours, right? Things like air conditioning improvements and ensuring that all of your HVAC is off when the buildings are largely vacant may drive more savings in the summer when the buildings are more vacant. Does that make sense? So there's some lumpiness to the annual savings. It's not a perfect 356,000 divided by 12 delivery of those savings numbers.
Right, but if we do amortize it, the $9.8 or $9.9 million divided by 20 years is about $500,000 a year, give or take. And so the bigger point is for 4 years beyond the contract, some pieces of equipment will last less than estimated, some will last more, but it's another $2 million.
Yeah, we've got the numbers in here on another slide. I think it's about $2.7 million of average savings from the end of the 20-year term.
That provides a wonderful fiduciary act for us, for our successors, to take that money and save it for replacement of other gear in that window.
Absolutely. It's a perfect segue into this, displaying the utility cost impact, reintroducing this bar illustration, whatever you'd like to call it, one more time. We are reducing the annual utility costs on average by 22% each year. And the district, as Director Schwartz was mentioning, can expect around $2.7 million of additional total utility savings after year 20. So again, as you did mention, presenting that fiduciary duty. And lastly, a significant reduction in the district's annual operations and maintenance costs. So Mr. Foster's team having to spend less time focusing on so many of the priorities that are listed out in this scope of work, to be focusing on other needs that were perhaps set in the near future that can now be prioritized today, which is exciting. So it really takes the workload off as well with many scope items in particular. Any questions on this specific slide, utility cost impact? All right. Taking a look at the summary of project financials, again, once again, highlighting the total project price. You'll see at the top here, the district at this point has selected their financier for this project with Sterling National Bank. As we do know, the district received an excellent interest rate of just below 2.5%, which our team was so excited to hear about and see. And with this financing term of 20 years, the projected capital contribution, I left it highlighted as it is still being finalized as of now, but we're hovering right around $1.8 million. And just below that, I've highlighted the capital contribution sources. So as I did mention, ESSER $2 with those specific scope items that are mentioned just below that are associated with the final scope of work. The BEST grant fund, of course, which was recently awarded to the district for the Lewis Palmer Middle School boiler installation. And the remaining dollars really associated with the security vestibules and wall installation from the district's capital reserves. That's how it's cleanly broken out there.
Yeah, I have a question for Dr. Summers here, actually. So we just reviewed the budget, and I'm not sure we'll have an update that touches this, but 1.8 million is the district's contribution to this project. This project includes the Lewis Palmer Middle School boiler, which was a line item in our budget. It includes the refurbishing of the fans at Lewis Palmer High School, the BAS optimization with the ESSER funds. That was also line items in the budget. And the ESSER funds, as I recall, was around 2.25, 250, something along those range. But what you're saying here is that all those projects cost 1.8 million, and 200 to 250 is going to come from the ESSER funds. 40% of the Lewis Palmer Middle School boiler comes from the BEST grant. We have to pick up the rest, and that's what the last line really is, right? So if I'm understanding this correctly, and that's what my question is, out of the 1.8 million, I'll just say 225,000 is coming from ESSER funds, and 40% of that boiler, which I don't know what the number is coming from a BEST grant.
161, I believe.
161. So roughly 400,000, rounded, is coming from other sources than the school district. So this is saying to the board that our vote on the budget approval will include 1.4 million as a one-time expenditure out of the existing reserves. It's not an ongoing commitment to recurring expenditures, but it's a one-time commitment of about 1.4 million. Does that make sense to everyone? Any questions around that? Is that clear?
Good question. During the savings, is that become cost neutral, or is that above and beyond the cost neutral savings?
You have to repeat your question. I'm not sure I understand it.
So the 1.8 million, the upfront.
The 1.8 is a part of the 9.2 total cost, I believe, correct?
Yes, and so it'll be cost neutral each year. By statute, it has to be cost neutral, guaranteed to be cost neutral. Most likely, the difference between the guaranteed savings and the projected savings of about $30,000 in year one is upside, probable upside for the district, but guaranteed to be break even or better.
Thanks. Yes.
Ron?
Maybe another way to think about it is it's a down payment.
But another way to think about it is if we weren't doing the security vegetables at all, it would cost us 1.8 million or 1.4 million, because that is a project that fits in the overall idea, but the actual energy savings, there's no energy savings from the vegetables. It is simply security, right? And so it made sense to take some of our savings and invest it so that we're looking at the environment in its whole, the internal air, the exit, entrance, security, etc. So that's why it's really, the big chunk of that, of what we're paying out of our reserves is really going for the non-energy savings part of the project. Does that make sense?
Yes, I was getting to the point of over time of this energy savings. The energy savings in and of itself also pays for that, the vestibule construction. So, like Mr. Schwartz's analysis, it's a down payment, but over time it pays for itself.
Theoretically.
Well, I'm going to question that, because I am not convinced in my own mind that's the case, because what I'm hearing is that the loan will be paid back over 20 years out of the energy savings, and there's about 30,000 roughly per year in excess of the loan payments. Well, you'd have to have 30,000 divided into 1.8 million to figure out if we're getting that paid off with energy savings. So my point here is we're not paying for those vegetables out of energy savings. Am I correct?
You are correct. Yes, absolutely. And Rob, I can see Robert going this just because we were talking about the difference between the guaranteed and the projected annual savings, and understanding, is that enough to cover the cost of the security vestibules? And the answer is, it's
That's why essentially this whole project, and the reason we're paying money out of our reserves is for those security vestibules, and they're not going to be paid back with energy savings. It's a commitment that the school district is making for security. And it fits well in this project. We'll probably save money on them by including them in this project.
And we get them done in a very time-effective manner.
Almost immediately, yeah.
So they're ready for the start of the school year. And it's never too soon for our staff and our students' safety.
Just one quick clarification. I mentioned 161 for the best grant contribution from the state. It's actually 141, so my apologies, which represents 30% of the total cost of the Lewis Palmer Middle School boiler.
So 130 plus 230 is about 360, roughly, outside the funding.
Yes.
So out of the 1.8, 360, so it's still going to be 1.44, roughly, that we'll be committing to out of our reserves as a one-time expenditure. Now, I want to just put this one, I don't want to use the word spend, but I don't know how else to say it. I want to spend this so that we appreciate that we're going to spend $1.4 million of our reserves to get $9.2 million of deferred maintenance completed. That's what this also means. Quickly.
Quicker than we do it organically.
Well, we haven't been able to pass any MLOs. Right? Does everyone appreciate what that means and where we're at on that? Fairly accurate?
You're hitting it right on the net. Absolutely.
Dr. Summers, agreed then?
May I just do one final clarification in the spirit of what Ms. Upchurch was asking? And it's actually on this slide. The total project price is $9.2 million. Theoretically, that's the check that Schneider will receive in a combination of two things: a check from the district for 1.8 and a check from a lender for 7.4, give or take thousands. Okay. So then the question is, if we go back and look at the projected savings of the 9.9, then theoretically it might cover the vestibules.
Well, in fact, if you just took those last average of 4 years of 2.7, it does too, but that doesn't provide any replacement.
Correct.
So, I mean, you can look at it that way.
Yeah, but to Ms. Up, I think that's maybe where you were going with that, right? That over the course of the entire contract and lending window, all those funds are recovered. Is that kind of what you were thinking?
That was what I was thinking. I was thinking limited dollars, piece of pie,
And if we,
tax-funded dollars.
and if future boards take that approach, then all of these $9 million, which will probably double in cost by 24 years from now, would be an $18 million replacement because we wouldn't have anything in reserve for it. Right. So,
And I think we might have mentioned on an earlier slide, so I apologize for interrupting, we shared the projected annual savings. So again, not the guaranteed. The $9.9 million over 20 years is what is guaranteed. The $10.7 million you see in the second is what's projected there. So you see, really, it does make a significant impact on the final cost of those security vestibules. It does take a good chunk of that out. And then if you include the after 20-year, post 20-year savings from the additional scope items, it does in turn pay for itself.
Is everything in present value dollars?
Yes.
Okay, so we're not mixing apples and oranges to
Yes.
Mr. Taylor's question.
Absolutely. Here.
any other questions on this slide? Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Definitely. Just a few more slides here. Wanted to briefly reintroduce our marketing communications plan for this summer, as well as going into the following year. I shared this same slide at our 60% meeting, but including some signage once construction gets underway in some strategic locations, a post-project video where our team will bring on a professional crew, spend a day, be able to put on a professional video that the district can utilize in their social media pages to be able to tell the positive story of this project, as well as what else is going on at the district. All in all, utilizing social media as well as our own social media platforms that can bring bandwidth and, again, sharing that positive story, working with the district's communication team on that front as well. And lastly, I wanted to include for this, we've begun introductory conversations about a district event to put on later this year. We've hosted a very similar event, calling it Students in STEAM. We've actually held one in California recently. It's called Girls in STEAM. It's a female empowerment conference. And we've been in discussions with some of the district's communications team on this kind of event, but bringing in Lewis Palmer School District students, as well as other schools from El Paso County, finding the right kind of venue and putting on an event this fall that really does provide hands-on activities for students, discussing the importance behind STEM and STEAM learning, and be able to ensure the school year. Of course, we're entering a new school year now where a lot is changing, where we can really kick it off the right way. So that's hopefully happening this fall. We've already begun discussions and introductory conversations for that event, but these 4 components, they will get started this summer. We have an entire marketing team dedicated to helping to put on these different events, and we're excited to get that process started.
Are you sponsoring the Students in STEAM event?
Yes, we will
Okay.
be sponsoring that event, absolutely.
And in the other projects that you've worked on, and I'm just purely thinking through the Goal 5 lens at the moment, but in terms of communicating with the greater community, it seems like this is something easy to push out on social media or to communicate with district personnel and families that are connected to the district. But do you have enrolled in the Polina also an idea, or some ideas to get out to the greater community, and how do you?
So we've heard from some of the district's communication team on different forums that they utilize to get their message out successfully. So we have those conversations this summer. I don't have an answer for you today on exact methods to how that would occur, but our team is in the process of working toward that. So yeah, we also leverage our own, we leverage our own social media pages in order to get the message out, and working collaboratively with the district on that. So.
And I think that'd be just something for all of us as board members to be aware of in the next few months when we're communicating with stakeholders and whatnot, so that people are aware of.
Great question, Director Phillips. Thank you. Moving forward with the timeline, a very high-level timeline here. With the continuation of the district's legal counsel review, as well as wrapping up the final T's and C's with the different contract documents, we are hoping the board moves forward in authorizing the energy performance contract for Monday, June 14th. Once that concludes and moves forward, we'll be having our construction kickoff meeting, introducing new folks on our team out on the project. Robert's really excited to get that process started. Have that hopefully in late June of 2021. Get the security vestibule installation, I believe, the weekend after July 4th. I believe is when we're hoping to kick things off. And internally, that process has already started, so we're getting very excited about it as well. Completion in early to mid-August of 2021, ready for students to come on in. And then final construction completion to occur sometime in mid-summer 2022. So really touching on and wrapping up towards the beginning to the middle of the summer.
Dr. Summers, on the first line item here, so it's anticipated that we'll have a energy performance contract and a financing contract ready by the 14th.
Yes, it is.
Okay, very good. At this point, would that just be a part of our consent agenda? Because there's no more presentation, is there?
This is it.
Assuming the board is satisfied with all of the information and does not require additional questions or info, I think it could appear as a consent agenda item.
Yeah, I asked that question then. Would you be okay if these 2 contracts are part of the consent agenda?
Yeah, I feel that all my questions have been answered. I would have no objections to that, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you.
Concur.
Good.
I agree. I want to make sure that we're, to Ms. Phillips' point, that we're communicating this one time, how the process, the transparency of this process has been fantastic, and this presentation is great. I just want to make sure that it is clear and understood how the funding mechanism of this versus funding mechanism of ongoing costs, that we're being mindful in how we communicate that. Just because I think it would be helpful. Not everybody understands or knows what different pieces of the pie and different buckets it comes from.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, this slide, utility cost impact slide, this one, you would like the detail of what's in the green and in the gray?
I don't, I understand it, but I'm saying for the sake of communicating with stakeholders.
But is that what you're thinking that we should be communicating?
Yes.
This is our savings, which allows us to have this payment
Right.
flexibility.
Well, this one and the fund, yes, the funding mechanism of it from the capital reserves. And I think that's a bigger communication. I don't think that's necessarily a Schneider discussion. I think it's more of a consent agenda, yes.
For the contracts?
Yes,
Yeah.
but I'm talking on a communication front.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm envisioning both what we discussed earlier in terms of uploading all of the relevant details as well as presenting a nice summary of exactly the what is happening, how it's happening, to all of those points.
My guess is that thick book they showed us has all that detail, so it's just a matter of how we communicate it, and I agree with you that it should be the forefront of our purpose here.
Yeah, in terms of passing it though, within the consent agenda would be fine with me, and then maybe on the website we say authorized on June 14th.
Okay, perfect. I have one request.
Yes.
The Lewis Palmer School District 38 logo that you've created, which says promoting safety, cultivating relationships. Can you guys send me a copy of that? Because I'd like to actually put that on my signature in my email. I really like that.
Yeah, of course. We'll send that over to you today.
Thank you. Following your suggestion.
Yeah, actually, could you send it to all board members?
Absolutely. We can get done. No problem.
Any other questions, comments? I'll just close with thank you. You know, it has been 6 months almost, right? And I think the process that you guys followed and the process that the district followed in selecting you was very good. And it's remarkable to me that through the state of Colorado and its laws and your experience in history, we can actually address over $9 million of deferred maintenance with about $1.4 million out of our reserves. And it seems like a no-brainer to me, but it looks clearer to me today than it was in December, so thank you very much.
Thank you for that, President Taylor. And we'd like to also commend this board and thank this Board of Education for the accessibility that they've provided to us throughout this entire process. And of course, the leadership from Dr. Somers has been excellent throughout this entire process. It makes our jobs easier, and it's been such a pleasure working with the school district, and we're so excited to get it started this summer.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next agenda item is a first reading of a resolution regarding the Grace Best Education Center. Teresa or Tiffany, did you guys want to actually read it?
Do you want it?
Or do you want me to read it? I'm not sure how you want to handle this.
You want to read it?
Sure. I can read it in its entirety. We have one question. Okay, Lewis Palmer School District Number 38 Board of Education resolution regarding proceeding with Phase 2 of Grace Best Facility Master Plan work. Whereas the Lewis Palmer School District Number 38 Board of Education, known as the Board, directed district leadership to enter into Phase 1 of developing a facility master plan for the Grace Best facility with owners representative and answer advisory and cooperative strategies, and form a steering committee in order to obtain feedback from the community regarding the future of the Grace Best facility. And whereas the members of the board reviewed the requested feedback from the Grace Best steering committee and accepted the committee's recommendation to maintain the future flexibility of the Grace Best facility asset in the best interest of district students and the community. Now therefore be it resolved that the board directs the superintendent to enter into Phase 2 of developing a facility master plan for the Grace Best facility. Number 2, formulate a plan to demolish the oldest portion of the building and fully remodel the remaining portion of the building to meet the needs of current district programs while maintaining current programming and maximizing flexibility. This work will include, but is not limited to, number 3, explore design possibilities for the remodel of the remaining portion of the facility by hiring an architect, contractor, and/or consultant. Number 4, explore and recommend the best possible financial solutions for obtaining the chosen concept. Number 5, design a timeline/schedule that will effectively deliver the chosen design. Be it further resolved that the superintendent or his designee is hereby authorized to request that Answer Advisory/Cooperative Strategies proceed with Phase 2 of the Grace Fest Facility Master Plan development.
I have one comment, and that was on number 2. And it says maintaining flexibility. And as I recall, this was future oriented. So if we could say maximizing future flexibility, I would feel it's a little more appropriate to what we talked about.
So at the very end of 2, instead of maximizing flexibility, just
Insert the word future.
So on that same number, my only input would be that it seems like we repeat that we're formulate a plan to demolish the oldest portion of the building and fully remodel the remaining portion of the building to meet the needs of current district programs while maintaining current programs. It seems like we could probably scratch while maintaining current programs because it already meeting the needs of current district programs already says what we're trying to do. I don't know that we need to say it twice. One or the other.
initially, I think those were 2 distinct meeting the needs of current district programs was physically meeting the needs of,
Well, the way I'm reading it
there's
is,
all district programs and then the programs in the building.
and the way I'm reading it is, or the way I interpreted that was that while this is going on, we'll do it while maintaining existing programs. That's the way I read that.
Okay, I see where you can see that.
Both district-wide and with
Ron?
It sounds like the intent may have been, when it said remodel, maybe to meet future district programs and maintain the current programming.
That's possible. I
It
don't
appears the original intent of this was to build something that was agile and flexible as needs changed and lasted for 50 years. Henceforth, if we were to remodel, you would think that would be logical.
So let me read it the way I just heard you suggest with my one word add. Formulate a plan to demolish the oldest portion of the building and fully remodel the remaining portion of the building to meet the needs of future district programs while maintaining current programming and maximizing future flexibility. Does that sound okay, everyone? Teresa, are we good with that?
Yep, so we would replace the word current
With future,
future.
and then add future flexibility. That feels more in line with everything we've talked about.
Good point.
Any other comments? Questions? All right, first reading's done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany and Teresa. Our next agenda item is personnel items. Mr. Foster will present personnel items for board review and approval. I'm going to make a motion to approve the personnel items as presented.
I'll second the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Comments, questions, concerns?
One question. With us voting on this, I know this is a special meeting. Do we have to vote on it in our regular board meeting, or are we covering the voting on? Sometimes it's in the consent agenda, sometimes it's not. So I don't know if it matters or not.
This will be done today.
Okay,
Because we're currently in a special meeting.
gotcha.
If it was just a work session meeting, then we would not vote on it.
Well, hearing no Questions or comments? Ms. Wood, would you call the roll?
Mr. Clausen?
Aye.
Ms. Phillips?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye.
Thank you. Our next item is our superintendent's update. So Dr. Summers, the table is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. So there was a request for just some additional information specifically related to our cap and building reserve conversation from our last May meeting. So I just wanted to walk through where that update sits as it relates to some of the conversations we just had. So the original general fund transfer to cap reserve was identified at 2.6. You see a line item on there that is appearing for the first time in front of you. We did not have this issue as of May, but we have a Prairie Winds chiller that has blown. We are expecting bids to come in on that chiller. We're in process of obtaining those bids, are we, Mr. Foster?
Yes.
So our current projected amount for that replacement would be an additional $400. You'll see cash in lieu that was slated initially for cap reserve transfer that is now going to be left in the building fund. So what you see is that updated amount of a general fund transfer to the tune of 3.4, which includes the 1.8 Schneider Electric allocation. And then you see the building fund transfer to cap reserve less the cash in lieu. So you see a building fund transfer now of a 1.2 amount.
Okay, let me make sure I'm understanding. So the building fund has the 1.2 million from the sale of the property out on the east side.
Correct.
And then it should also have 400,000
Yep.
cash in lieu. So it's going to be 1.6 something or other.
1.6.
So I'm a little confused, I'm sorry. But what is this bottom thing telling us? We're not transferring money
You know what I think?
out to the building
We need to
fund.
take transfer out and just leave it at that's what the building fund will have.
Building fund should have 1.6.
1.6.
Okay.
So
Should have
strike
1.2
transfer.
plus 400.
Yes. Essentially, we'll see 1.6 in our building fund. And I apologize, Ms. Seeley, who wasn't able to join us here.
No, I understand. It's okay. It's
So
okay.
I think what we're trying to account for is there's 1.6 in our building fund.
Right. Then up above, if we talk through that for a minute, what you're saying here is the 414 out of the building fund had been in the original money we were going to transfer.
Correct. To
Now we're
cover.
not.
Yeah.
The 400 is a new item.
Correct.
And so we had 2.656, which includes the 1.8, correct?
Yes.
So we had roughly 600 or about 860,000 costs, which are pretty much those two line items.
Correct.
Or no, they're not. It's before those two line items. So now we've gone from.
Let me go to this next slide.
Okay.
Because I think that helps it better. The summary of the cap reserve.
And there's those line items. You're right.
So the increase really is coming from the PRHS geothermal project, which we were initially looking at some of those cash and lieu funds being able to offset.
And is there a credit in here for ESSER funds?
Not currently.
So that would show up, though,
That would,
on our budget.
which speaks to PR. Now, let me go through here. So 1.8, which we've talked about, is really more like 1.5. Although the ESSER funds aren't applicable to our budget until we receive the actual reimbursement for those.
But in planning, right?
Yep.
We're planning it to fit here.
Correct.
Might I make an attempt? to summarize?
After we get through the detail, if you don't mind, I'm still trying to wrap my mind around this.
Keep going down your path.
The LP chiller, is that the same thing we just saw at the Schneider Electric?
No, that is a separate item.
That was middle school, correct?
Middle school
boiler.
Okay.
Okay.
Which has been repurposed to just the Schneider project.
Right. So the chiller replacement, I'd asked a question at one time, I think of Bob, and I said, Bob, if you had to prioritize everything that you would do, where would you place this? And I didn't think it was as immediate as this year.
No, PWAS chiller just failed this last week. We did a service on it.
I was asking about the Lewis Palmer High School.
Oh, sorry, wrong chiller. Yeah, the Lewis Palmer High School chiller has come to its useful life and has
And its useful one?
Yes. It has been repaired, and the failure rate will be coming in the next year if we don't replace it.
Okay.
It's like much of our equipment, it faces that life. With all of the other things moving up, we moved it way up for us to get as great as possible.
So I guess part of the question that this is pulling from me is, what other end-of-life things are we looking at here? Because I know 4 years ago I saw a deferred maintenance budget of $50 million. Is all of it nearing its end of life? I mean, I know it's not because I remember some of the detail that was on there, but we need to, not for this budget necessarily, but as we roll into our strategic plan, this needs to be laid out in better detail of when do we anticipate these type of expenditures. Because as you know, our operating budget is almost break even. And 80%, 75 to 85% of our operating budget is salaries and benefits. So there's not a lot of extra room. That's why one reason we have all this deferred maintenance. But we need to see this in our strategic plan with some more detail because I keep getting surprised, frankly, right? Like Prairie Winds, I mean, it failed. But
That was
did we
a shock
have
to us,
any
too.
idea that it was nearing its end of life?
We should have got at least 3 more years out of that.
We were hoping for 3 to 5 more years out of that, and then it was powered up after a repair for a pipe and a condenser side load.
But wouldn't you argue across the entire district, for every one of those that goes 3 years early, there's another one that goes 3 years long?
Yes.
And it approximately balances out. So to Mr. Taylor's point, if we calendarize these expenses across a 5-year window, we might do a blue one instead of a red one, but we still do one. Right?
It's a good point. Yes.
Yeah. So it's, again, not for this budget. I'm not asking for that. But as we go into the next year, when we look at 2022, 23 budget and the forecast, 4 or 5 years out, we need to be looking at it because, if we're going to address teacher salaries, which we want to do, if we want to address the deferred maintenance and perhaps, something on Grace Best, we need to see everything. Because at the end of the day, we got to see how big is the pie, how's it currently being sliced, and how do we address the issues. But we can't do it issue by issue. We need to look at it comprehensively. Ron, I got my mind wrapped around it now, sorry.
You helped us to. All I was thinking about when we looked at these, and thank you, Dr. Summers and Ms. Seeley for putting this together, is I did an exercise with the fiscal folks to try to essentially build a net worth statement for the district. And when you look at these, it's really how much do we have, what are we going to spend, and how much do we have left in reserves. And if the board is interested, I will be happy to dust that off, go through it with the fiscal folks, and present it at any one of our next sessions so that we all have a good feel of what we have in the bank. And when we're done with these, what we're going to have in the bank.
Can we include it in our budget review for June? Is it 2 weeks too soon?
No.
I think it would be nice just to
I think it'd be
include
great.
that in our budget review. Now, again, I would just want to add, we will be asked to vote on the budget, but it's a flexible budget because as we adopted the prior year, we're going to have flexible budget until October counts, so we don't have to have variable in our top line throughout the year. So, but it's pretty much concrete on the spend side, depending on whatever adjustments come from the October count. So if you could bring it to the budget meeting next time, that would be great.
Yeah. And if you're okay with it, Dr. Summers, I'll spend an hour or two with Kevin to make sure it's crisp.
I think that'd be time well spent. Absolutely.
I appreciate that a lot. I think it helps also when we're going forward with next year's budget and with our flex budget of zeroing in on those priorities with our deferred maintenance and as you mentioned with staff compensation. So I appreciate that a lot.
Cool. Any questions for Dr. Summers? Any other update?
No, sir. Thank you for the opportunity.
Board member comments then. Teresa, can we start here and work down?
Sure. I didn't actually anticipate there would be comments today, but I will say that I had the opportunity to attend a number of retirement resignations and presentations to staff and teachers who had been working in our district for 5, 10, 15, 20, I think the highest was 40 years. Ms. Kathy Burkell is resigning this year. And so really uplifting end of year events and to see the effort that had gone in from our educators this last year, especially for those who are retiring. It was just really impressive to see the effort and energy that went into that. And also, quite honestly, I think there was a sense of palpable relief in some of those events that, they, as student-focused as they are, they had gotten our students through a really tough 12 months. So I was just really appreciative and grateful to be able to attend those, but also to be able to talk to people personally. And then also just wanted to give a little shout out to Rachel, who I think did that video, or maybe with Julie, on the retirees. And if you haven't had a chance to watch it, please do. And then of course the graduations, which unfortunately I wasn't able to attend in person, but was able to watch on YouTube. so thank you to my fellow board members who were able to be there and represent all of us. And what a great culmination of celebrating the excellence in education. So thanks to all the efforts that went into the graduation ceremonies.
I would absolutely concur. I also was able to attend most of the staff not commencement. What's the word we used to use when we used to do it as a large group? Our retirement.
Convocation.
Our convocations. And also the 2 graduations. And selfishly, I'm going to say, seeing my own child graduate and walk across that stage, and so many of the students that I've seen grow up since they were in first grade was, it was motivating, inspiring, and it was motivating and inspiring because it was a realization of the fantastic work, the grace, the grit, and the creativity and the passion that our teachers loved on our kids. And through from 6th grade to the 8th grade to our seniors and beyond, just honoring that this was an end to a tough year. And the camaraderie and love that was shown between staff members at the different school sites and school buildings. No one person did this alone. And I'm so looking forward to next year in hopes that it's a different school year. I think we've learned a lot. I think that as Dr. Summers so eloquently put, sometimes there was mistakes made and we learn from those, and we do so with grace and with grit, and we learn, and we take away what we, the good, and we learn what didn't work, and I think in the face of adversity, you grow. And so I appreciate that, and I appreciate the leadership too.
Graduation is the pinnacle of what we do as a school system. And to have it with everybody there, and all the parents there, and the pomp and the circumstance shouldn't ever be a privilege, but it was a privilege, and it's appropriate. It should never stop. So kudos to everybody who helped make that happen, regardless of circumstance. In my comments, typically I try to really focus on the daily magic of the schools, because it's why we pay taxes, why we have schools, why we have kids in schools and teachers taking care of those kids and bringing them along. Last time I spent some time on what the district has achieved in spite of all the obstacles. And as I was thinking about it this morning, it dawned on me that we as a team have got some stuff done. And I remember talking to a few of you individually about a year ago, and you said, "You're new, what do you think?" And I said, "I don't think we do enough." And so I just wanted to take a moment and thank and congratulate the team for investing where we need to invest, saving where we need to save, and having the fortitude to step up and do things regardless of circumstance, pandemic, stock market changes, dog eating my homework, you name it. We do not let things get in our way. That's the mark of a quality team. And any of us should be able to cover the other. So thank you guys. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. My fellow board members, just want to concur with the statements that have been made. I'm going to have mixed feelings. I had a pretty significant family event during the time of graduation, so I missed graduation, and that's something that I really look forward to each year, but I'm glad it was a great commencement for our seniors. I want to thank my fellow team members for the good year. This has probably been the most challenging year that I've experienced while being on the board. And I'll put in a lot of extra hours, and thank you again. Also want to thank everyone for the significant amount of emails throughout this month and subsequent months. As a board member, it's very helpful for me to get a good understanding of where our community members, stakeholders, teachers, and team members come in and what their views are. So I sincerely appreciate those, and as one board member, I would like to continue to receive those. So if there are issues, feel free to reach out to me or other board members. One thing I will say is about a year ago, my wife appeared in this room regarding a District 38 employee. It was an employee that was very kind and dear to our family, and as one board member, I had to remind her, as well as a few other friends and family members, that as a Board of Education member, we only have one employee, and that's Dr. Casey Summers. He's our only employee. And the reason why we work in that fashion is we empower Dr. Summers to make all the day-to-day decisions, and if there's specific direction that we have for Dr. Summers, then we either give that to him in the usually form of a resolution or some other direction. So with that being said, once again, I appreciate everything that Dr. Summers done and has done, and he has my support as well as the other board members, and looking forward to having a couple months off so for us to recharge our batteries as we move forward into the next school year in the fall.
Thank you all, and I agree with everything you've all said. I would just add to what Matt said is one reason that we're not involved in day-to-day is because as a board, if there's a student that has a problem, and it comes to the board for resolution, we can't be involved. Otherwise, we lose our independence. The same is true for staff, employees, etc. So, you know, I personally try and stay out of the district day to day because it could, you know, affect my ability to act as a board in any kind of contested issue that might arise. So, just to add to what Matt said, and I appreciate everyone. I want to express my gratitude to this board individually. I've enjoyed working with you, and I've enjoyed learning from you and appreciating your differences. We all have commonality here about a school system, but I appreciate the fact that we have our differences and that helps us find better solutions and provide better guidance. I appreciate Dr. Summers and his entire team. I'm looking forward to an August offsite where we get to meet the entire team with us again and focus on the comprehensive strategic plan and the guiding principles or policies that support that comprehensive strategic plan. I think it's somewhat of a new beginning coming out of a pandemic and having a lot of new faces, frankly. I'm kind of surprised that we've had as much turnover as we have. But Dr. Summers, thank you very much for all that you do. I know it's a tiring effort. The pandemic felt like 5 years to me, and I sometimes wake up now and I'm walking out the door and I'm like, where's my mask? And I realize, oh wait, I've been vaccinated. There's no mask mandate, right? And it takes me a minute to unwind that. And I appreciate everybody in the district that has done so much to get us through. Did we do it perfectly? I don't know. I don't know what perfect is. I don't know what a perfect pandemic experience is. But what I do know is that I witnessed firsthand a commitment to education and the students, the parents, choice, and as far as I'm concerned, there's no one that did it better. So thank you all for what you've done. All right, the next item is I will make a motion to convene in executive session in accordance with CRS 24-6-402, subpart 4, subpart A, to discuss the purchase, acquisition, lease, transfer, or sale of real, personal, or other property interest, and in accordance with CRS 24-6-402, subpart 4, subpart F, I, to discuss the personnel matter. The board will invite Dr. Casey Summers and Mr. Robert Foster to join them in executive session in the superintendent's office. Is that correct?
So we'll go to the Strong conference room, please.
To the Strong conference room. Mr. Foster will participate in the land discussion item, and the board will then consider the superintendent's evaluation. Following the executive session, the board members will reconvene in open session. There will be no further discussion, and the meeting will be adjourned.
Second.
Comments, questions? Hearing none. Ms. Vicki, could you call roll?
Mr. Clausen.
Aye.
Ms. Phillips.
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch.
Aye.